Hello guys, and welcome back to another MCreator procedure tutorial. So today what we're going to be looking at is global variables. We've covered local variables already, which are the ones that you create through the local variables tab, and then they would show up in this list here. Global variables do very much the same thing, though they're a little bit different on how they actually store things. So these local variables only are used with one instance when the procedure runs once. And then after the procedure is finished, what happens is they basically release the data and it doesn't store it. Global variables, on the other hand, do, but they have different ways of storing it. So if we go back to our workspace tab and then go to the variables, which is down below here, we have a tab where we have variable name, variable type, variable scope, and initial value. So if we click the plus sign right here, we can create a first global variable. You give it a name and basically select what kind of variable it is. And then you can select the scope of which one it is. So basically, I'll go over all the scopes in just a second, but there's different types, like for example, item stack that has to be set through procedures. You can't actually set it by the global variable. I think block states are very similar in that regard too. The ones that are like strings, numbers, and logic, those ones you can set for sure. So those aren't too much of a problem. Let's go ahead and just create a simple number variable. Now we're going to call it something like time. And we're going to check to see what kind of scopes we have. So let's cover those scopes next. So the default one that it's always assigned to is going to be global map. This is a variable type that is for the entire game. It is stored indefinitely, so it doesn't change even if the game is restarted. Then we have global session, which is basically going to be stored only for the session time, and then it's released after the game is closed. So basically after the server or a client closes out, saves, and goes back to the main menu, it basically releases the data. So it's very similar to how local procedures actually work, but in this case, it's going to do it when the game is actually closed. Then we have global world. So this one's a little bit different, very similar to the global map, but this is a variable that is specifically different for all different worlds. So even modded worlds will have a instance of this. So think of it as by the default game, we have 3 worlds. So there will be 3 variables, all with possible different values depending on how you set it up. So these work independently between each worlds. So you can basically run these ones separately, and you only need one variable for it. So if we created a world variable called time, we could basically have different times between the different worlds. It wouldn't actually affect the world time because that's linked between all worlds, but we could have a variable that basically keeps track of time for each world per se. That would be useful if you wanted to see how long the session has been open, or I don't know, for numerous other reasons you might need that particular variable. Then we have our 2 player variables. So this is player lifetime and player persistent. So these ones are stored to the player rather than to the actual game. And the player lifetime one is basically going to store it as long as the player is alive. And if they die, then it basically releases the data and resets it back to the initial value. With the player persistent one, this even is going to be with the player even after they die. So an example where you might need something like player lifetime would be probably like a score, or something like, something that's temporary that would normally be there if the player is alive, but might be gone when they're dead. So for example, if you had another inventory, you might be using item stack variables. and you might have an additional storage or something like that, then if they die, you would basically spawn all those at their death location when they die, and then you can have basically reset all the variables automatically. So that's one method of doing it. The persistent would be more for things that need to be with the player even after they die. So for example, if you're working on an economy mod or something like that, you don't want their currency from their bank to disappear, so you would use persistent variables in that case. All right, so let's just go ahead and go with a simple map variable for now, and we're going to call it time, and then we're also going to have it as a number. So when you create it, you'll have something in a list like this, and you'll have your time. This is your variable name, the variable type. So in this case, it's a number. And then we also have the variable scope, and we can set our initial value because it's one of the ones that are supported. So we'll just leave this at default. So we'll click it, and you might notice the value changes to 0.0 or 0.0. This is completely normal when you edit a variable. By default, it's an integer. After you change it, it's going to be a decimal. That's fine. It won't make any huge difference. Let's go back to our procedure though. We still have this open from before we made that variable. So if we open up our variables, you might notice that they're not actually updated yet. We don't have any particular variable in these lists. So let's go ahead and save, and then we'll go back to our workspace, our mod elements, and open it up. And now if we go to the variables, we can see that the variables have updated. So we do have a global variable one called time. And we also have another block here with one that can get the time as well. So these two blocks will work and basically allow you to update it. Now, the other thing that I want to show is there is a little bit of a difference between local and global with these particular blocks. Now, you might be familiar with the local procedure tutorial that I covered with local variables, and it said local. So let's go ahead and just create a simple variable. We'll call it world time, and we'll create it as a number. And let's go ahead and see what's going on here. So we can see that when we open up our variables now, we have two different types of variables. We have one called local. So if we go ahead and click that, click on the drop down, we can see that one's called local, the other one's called global, and then the variable name after that is what we're basically seeing. So local variables will always be at the top of the list, and then global variables will be further down in the list, so you can basically work with those. Other than that, all of the other variable types are basically the same and will work with the global variables. They should have support some way or another. Some of them, like the item stacks, will be an empty item stack until assigned a particular item. So you'll have to keep that in mind, run a script or something like when the game is first started or something, and then assign the variable some sort of value from that. But other than that, it's not too difficult. So let's just go ahead and create a simple variable here. We'll go with world time, and we'll find world time, and then we'll go ahead and get the, we can actually just assign it this direct value, and then we'll go ahead and run this on a world type update because that one will support world, and we do have a world variable, so this will be fine. And then we'll make a event, right click, and we can get that variable value. So we'll right click on a block, and then we'll go ahead and print out that value for the player. So we need that variable type, global, and then we're going to just print it out to the player itself. So we can't actually do this and just stick it on here. That won't work. So we need to use create text with, and we'll just stick it right there. And there we go. That's all we need to do. We'll save this and pop in game and give it a quick test. And yeah, just one of the things to be really aware of, make sure you actually set the variable type. I just went into game and tried testing, and I had it on local variable, and that wasn't actually setting the world time. So let's go ahead and try that again with the proper variable assigning the time. All right, so as you can see, I have tested a couple times, and we'll just clear that. think it's F3D. So if we go ahead and right click on it, we can see that we have the time increasing. This is probably in ticks, so 20 ticks per second. It's about accurate. So we can see that right now the time outside is 7,000, which is about 9 a.m. I would say. Let's see if we can get past this chicken. Hello, spider. So almost, I would say just over 12 noon, I would say. So that makes kind of sense. So yeah, so that's basically it. We can print out global variables. Now, if we go and restart the world, we can see that the value is still the same. Now, if you were to make a timer or something like that and not be dependent on the actual world time, it will still keep the value in this case for the one that we used for the scope, so that will be fine. We won't notice too much of a difference because we're always assigning the world time directly, but yeah, it's just a nice little feature that will allow you to do a lot more functionality. I use them a lot in CCTV Craft for player variables and stuff, so they do help quite a bit when you're working with more advanced scripts and stuff like that. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, let me know what you liked about it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.